Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning into the RW. This is your host, Brandon Macy, and I am excited about having a longtime friend with me, Donny Dial. Had your brother on the podcast. We got to talk about stuff. He didn't talk about you, thankfully, in a bad way.
It would have been all lies anyway.
But very glad to have you on the podcast, man. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I mentioned it to you a long time ago, and I'm excited about some of the things that you're going to share, some of your time in the military and all that kind of stuff. But I was thinking today how long that we've known each other, and I'm 40. You're a little bit older than me. We won't call it out, but I was 8 when you guys came to Royalwood, which would have been like 88 or something like that, 1988. Something like that.
88 or 8 or 9. I think I was 11, maybe 12.
Yeah. So now everybody has done the math and knows how old you are now.
Yes.
But
it shows. I mean, come on.
But I remember, meeting you and PJ, and we were not friends at first. Let me say that. Not that we were enemies, but meeting you and PJ was kind of the more outgoing.
Right.
Now, the PJ back then had super thick glasses. Like, I remember when I first met PJ, I was like, those things are thick. I mean, they were Coke bottle.
He had a little chip on his shoulder, apparently about that. So.
He did actually. Yeah. And you know what? You did too a little bit at that time. Yeah. You were a little bit more quiet. You're still a little bit more quiet. But the crazy thing was, I remember my parents went out of town.
Right.
And they, I guess, had talked to your parents or something, and we were going to the same school at that time, which was a Christian school.
Right.
And so they were like, all right, well, we'll keep Brandon for the week. And so I remember, first of all, kind of being like, I don't know these guys at all. And PJ, on the podcast, we talked about it, and he was like, man, we weren't happy about it. We were like, man, we got this little kid fixing to come in. But we ended up having a blast.
Right.
And kind of getting to know each other then.
Yeah, I think we made plans to try to scare you a lot.
I imagine.
And my mom was in on it. So
yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, your mom always did that. I remember you guys had a scooter back then.
Yeah.
And we rode it around the yard, went and rode it in the neighborhood down to there was some water nearby, like a bio or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, that was over in Sheldon Woods.
Yeah.
Sheldon Woods,
yeah, so it would have been, it wasn't Sheldon Reservoir, it was something else, right? There was some kind of water nearby.
Yeah, I think there's a big canal that runs back behind that neighborhood.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, just good times, man, and getting to know y'all. And then as time went on, there was a brief time there that me and you actually became really good friends and got to hang out a lot.
It happens a lot when people get tired of PJ. They come hang out with me. So.
PJ, if you're listening out there, he's not even here to defend himself, but
no, not at all.
But we had a good time, man. We've done a lot of fishing together. We're actually going fishing with our kids and stuff tonight, which is going to be interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of kids.
And so, I mean, we just had a lot of chance to do a lot of things together. But I wanted to talk about your time in the military because, first of all, I'm very interested in it. And by the way, thank you for your service, and I mean that.
It's my pleasure.
I know right now in the society that we're in, the situation that we're in, it's like, first responders, man, are getting just a lot of bad rap. People that are in the military, it's not looked at the way it used to be looked at. There used to be a lot of honor and respect. I still have that honor and respect regardless of, the few bad people that you have. I feel like you have that in every walk of life. You've got it in congressmen, you have it in senators, you have it in presidents, you've got it all widespread. But, I appreciate what you guys have done. And, we wouldn't be free if it wasn't for guys like yourself that made the sacrifices to do that. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. What made you want to go into the military? Because for me, I've always had honor for that. And I'm not saying that, if I was drafted or something like that, which I'm not going to be now, but if I would have been drafted at a time in my life, I would have served. but it's not something that I sought out. So, like, what made you want to do that?
Well, I've always had like this fascination with military equipment, all the museums, the old
Yeah.
equipment and stuff like that. So I've always kind of liked that part of it. But after 9/11, it was just going to happen. I fought it off, I had a job, girlfriend, stuff like that, keeping me from going. But eventually, I ended up getting laid off from a job, and I was like, now's the time. So I
Yeah.
just went ahead and signed up and took off.
Now, for everybody that doesn't know, what branch of the military were you in?
I was in the Army.
Okay.
Yep.
So, when you go to meet with them for the first time, I mean, what was your kind of thought process going
You
into
talking
that?
about recruiting?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I was a little bit older going in.
How old were you when you went in?
I was 27. I want to say 27.
So it's a lot of kids going in, right?
Yeah, I
A
mean,
lot
you
of
guys
18,
are,
19-year-olds. Yeah.
10 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And I went in, I've already been a little jaded by life, had a little street smart going in, so I thought
Sure.
I knew what I was doing. So
Yeah.
it's like they're selling you a used car.
They tell you all the good stuff and none of the
Yeah,
bad, right?
they have quotas that they got to meet.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, you know what? I want you to write down your first 4 places that you'd like to be stationed. And I'm like, okay, Hawaii, Texas, and Texas.
Yeah.
Fort Hood, Texas.
Yeah. You didn't get any of those places.
No, I went straight to Fort Campbell in Tennessee and Kentucky.
Yeah.
And
Which is the middle of just nowhere.
yeah,
right?
they tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get a sign-on bonus, all this good stuff, and they're like, all they want you to do is sign,
Yeah.
and then they're done with you.
Yeah. Well, and the bad thing is I think there was one time that the VA and all that kind of stuff was like a good place to get things done, and it's my understanding, especially in the last few years, that it's almost impossible to get things done through the VA, or it's really tough.
It's actually gotten a whole lot better. When I first started going, I was there. Every time I'd go for an appointment, you're talking 6-7 hours in a hospital.
Wow. Nobody wants to be in a hospital for that long.
No, and that's just going for like, you got a cold, want to go to the
Yeah.
doctor.
Yeah.
And so it's getting a lot better now. I try not to use it unless it's for something important, like I had surgery on my hand.
Yeah.
But it can be rough,
Oh, I bet. Well, when you first were recruited and stuff like that, you didn't know where you were going to go. What was some of the early process that you went through? I mean, I know it was some grueling stuff too. So what was some of the training and stuff that you guys had to
Prior to basic training?
do? Yeah.
I actually was supposed to show up for a lot of training with the recruiters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't go.
You didn't even go.
No.
You're like, I got this.
I got it. I thought I was in really good shape. We spent a lot of time in the gym, but muscles aren't
Totally
endurance.
different shape. Yeah.
And so when I got to basic training, I was in for a big surprise.
I bet. So what kind of stuff did you guys do in basic training?
Man, from day one, they start breaking you down. It's push-ups, sit-ups, any kind of physical training they can get you to do. They just make you start pouring sweat,
Oof.
breaking all those Oreos and
Yeah.
cupcakes out of your body.
Yeah.
So when we first started basic training, we would stand at the end of our bunks and do what they call the kill zone. We'd have just what they smoked us is what they called it. Just push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, all that stuff. And there was a puddle of sweat underneath every single person. But by the time basic training was over, there was nothing.
Not even sweating anymore.
Not even sweating anymore.
Yeah.
It breaks you down and then builds you up.
Yeah. Well, and I think, part of the mentality of the military is to push you to your breaking point, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, that's physically, mentally, emotionally, probably spiritually. I mean, just in every way. And I've had other friends that have been in the military and stuff like that and talked to them about things. Lance Wilkins, who we both know,
Right.
talked about some of the things that he had to do in the Air Force, getting locked in a little bitty box and all this other kind of stuff that I'm just like, okay, that sounds absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But, out of those things that you went through, what do you feel like you learned from that translates to your life now?
Patience.
Yeah.
And being able to listen to leadership.
Yeah.
Because when you first go in, you're hothead. You got the world, in your hand, the palm of your hand, and then they teach you that you don't, and that there's always someone a step above you. You need to be, be obedient to.
Yeah.
And, and they teach you the hard way. I was eating chow one day, and I had drill sergeant push my head into my salad that I was eating with a spoon. No forks, no knife.
Yeah.
And so my nose was covered in dressing, and you just can't do anything.
Yeah.
So pray a little bit. That's all you can do.
Well, and I know you well enough to know that, especially the pre-military Donnie.
Yeah.
That would have been very hard to swallow.
Absolutely. Yes.
I've seen you get mad a few times. I was afraid for the other person that you were mad at, but I'm just saying, I know that had to be hard to just swallow that and say, I got to take this.
It's very hard.
Yeah, I bet. But on the flip side of that, I would feel like, a person like you would learn, okay, but this is something that I can control when I need to control it.
And that's what it teaches you.
Yeah, yeah.
What they're doing to you is they're teaching you to immediately obey orders.
Yeah.
You can't have the guy beside you hesitating when you need to go do a flanking maneuver.
Yeah.
So it drowns out all the fear and everything else that you're feeling.
Right.
And you just do this job.
Right.
And that's what they're doing. They're breaking you down mentally, and they build you up into a soldier, which is basically part of a machine that gets the job done. I mean,
yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, and some people can't make it through that.
Yeah, we had quite a few people that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about you is anybody that knows a Dial knows hard head, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit stubborn. So, but the good thing about that is you're able to use that in situations and go, I'm just going to put my head down and get through this.
Yep.
And, didn't you have like some back issues and stuff during that time, or was that later?
That was much later.
Because I remember you telling me one time that, you were having to carry heavy packs and do all this stuff and then have back problems at the same time. You're just trying to grit your teeth and go through it.
Yeah, it just comes down to not wanting to let the guy beside you down.
Yeah.
You just got to push through it.
Yeah.
It was miserable, training.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and to me, that's a lesson in itself, right? Is learning to live for other people.
Absolutely.
And I feel this way when I've gone on trips like to third world countries and stuff. You see these people that are honestly some of the happiest people I've ever seen.
Right.
And I'm going, you're making $40 a month, but you're so happy. And then you come back here and you see people that are making $50 an hour and they can't be happy no matter what they do. They've got good families, got everything they need, blah, blah, blah. And you realize that happiness oftentimes is living for other people, putting your own things to the side,
right,
and not being selfish. But, man, we're so inundated with this selfish mentality of it's all about me, and the American dream sometimes isn't all that great when you look at it that way. It's like I go to third world countries and come back and go, wow, we're living wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just recently, actually 2 summers ago, I was in Canada, and I was in New Brunswick, which is the size of Texas. It's huge, with 140,000 people living there. So when I say it's wilderness, everywhere you go, it's just wilderness.
Right.
But some of the nicest people that I've ever met, some of the most humble people that I've ever met, and they don't have a whole lot, but they're so happy because they're not on top of each other. It's like when I went into town one day, and you pull up to the stoplight, and they're like, no, come on, come on through, and like letting you through, and I'm just sitting here going, this would never happen in Houston. I'd be getting cussed at, I'd be getting yelled at.
Absolutely.
And when I came back here, like from being in that slow pace, and I came back here, I was like, what are we doing?
You got it wrong.
Oh man, this rat race that we get caught up in, where we feel this, push to always have a bigger house and a better car and a newer this and the best iPhone and all this stuff. When you break it down, it's like none of this stuff is even important. Like family is important,
Yeah. A lot of it's even detrimental to us, I think.
Absolutely.
I'm seeing it with, constantly being in contact with everybody. Social media.
Yeah.
It can be a bad thing.
Well, you end up getting through your day and realizing that your time was wasted by commenting on someone's Facebook post or something, and then you're just going, but I don't have any real connections with people.
Right.
And honestly, that's one thing that I enjoy about the podcast is I get to actually sit down and have a conversation with somebody instead of texting somebody or picking up the phone and calling somebody. Like, this means a lot more, just being able to have a conversation, than texting somebody and going, hey man, how you been?
Right.
I mean, we don't have the opportunity to sit down for an hour and just talk to each other anymore. It's crazy.
Yep.
So going back to the military, when did you so you said you were in Tennessee, Kentucky?
Yeah. Fort Campbell. Yep.
So when did you end up going to Iraq? When did that actually take place?
I was in Kentucky for a year, and then we deployed in 06 to 07, I think it was.
Okay. And so when you deployed, like, what was your objective there? What were they telling you were going to accomplish, basically?
Our objective was to guard a supply route.
Okay.
Period. There's a main supply route running into Baghdad,
Mm-hmm.
and we were just overwatch that and expand it,
Yeah.
and keep pushing the bad guys back away from this major supply route.
Yeah.
And that was it.
So what were some interesting, why don't you tell me, like, one of the interesting things that happened when you were doing that? Because I've seen video. Like, I think it was YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen video of when you guys got attacked or there was a fight, something.
Well, we got hit by mortars. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I saw the video of that, which was crazy.
Yeah.
And so why don't you, I don't want to spoil it all, why don't you tell one of those stories? Or maybe tell that story.
Well, I can start out with just our first mission that we
Yeah.
went out on.
Yeah.
It was breaking us in because we had to go and pull security for some civilians that were doing road work. That was our first mission. Simple.
Yeah.
So we
Which
get out
you
there.
probably realized nothing was simple there,
No.
right?
No.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the turret. I was a machine gunner, so 90% of the time when we went out mounted in vehicles, I was up in the turret, either on the 50 cal or the 240. And so I could see everything.
Yeah.
So we pull up.
Which also kind of makes you the target too, right?
Yeah. So,
Man,
the
nobody
turret
wants
comes
to
up
be
to
there.
here, and I'm just like looking over it just a little bit.
Yeah.
But we pull up to meet these two civilians, and they walked, and we send out two of our guys to go inspect the area they're going to be working. And they walk next to a car, and it blows up right off the bat. We weren't out of our base for maybe 10 minutes at that point.
Oh my God.
First mission out of the box.
So kills these guys, I guess. Or did they miss it?
I think it killed one of them, and another one was just blown to smithereens. And so I'm on the turret, and I'm looking around trying to see if there's going to be fire coming from anywhere. Luckily, our two guys just got a few little small shrapnel wounds.
Yeah.
And so they grab the civilian, and they run up to my Humvee and throw him on the hood. And it's
Yeah.
bad. You can just imagine this guy got hit by all the shrapnel. He was just bleeding out everywhere. And so I'm up on the turret on my gun, and I'm just like, I didn't know what to do,
Oh my God,
it was just a rude awakening to what we were in store for. This was one of the worst cities at the time.
Yeah.
And,
What city was that?
It's Ramadi.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right outside of Baghdad, basically.
Yeah, about 45 minutes outside of Baghdad.
So your first kind of, I mean, that was your first kind of inside look to see what
Yeah.
was going to happen.
At that point, I started praying a little bit more.
I guess so. And that has to be, I don't care, movies, nothing else prepares you for seeing something like that firsthand. It has to be.
They can't do enough graphics and CGI
Yeah.
to just show you what it's really like.
Yeah. Well, and I know another time, tell the story about the time that a grenade got thrown into you guys.
This is one of those times when God was there.
Yeah.
And there was no doubt about it. We were doing what we called a presence patrol off the supply route. And we just go out and shake hands with the civilians. If we have intel on bad guys, we go clear the house and get them and
Right.
stuff like that. And so we're walking down this alleyway. All the houses have like 10-foot walls all the way around the back.
Yeah.
And there's alleyways. And we're walking. And we're about 8 feet apart. And I'm walking, and I I look in front of me and I see a grenade come over this wall and land right by my buddy Reyes, one of my good friends. And so we all yell grenade, take off running, and jump for cover. It never went off. Never went off.
And what's the percentage of grenades that don't go off? It's
not
crazy,
happen,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like 1 in several million, right, or something.
I've never seen a grenade.
Yeah. Well, when you told me that story, because I remember you telling me that story, I looked it up because I was like, I gotta see,
Yeah.
and it was some crazy statistic
Well,
that it just basically never happens.
this wasn't a modern day frag
Yeah.
grenade that are round now. It looked like, the old pineapple style, like
Yeah.
from Vietnam kind
Yeah.
of deal. So probably what helped us.
Yeah.
So we just exfilled and went back to our base and left it.
Wow. But I mean, obviously, through times like that, you can look and go, God had His hand on me.
Yeah.
Because there's just no way.
Yeah, and I was lucky. I was in a room with our medic and a couple of my buddies who were real Christian guys, and we'd get prepared for going out on a mission. And the guys next door, I got it, headbanger music on. They're in there getting amped up to go out.
Yeah.
We had prayer meetings.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Before every meeting, we had a prayer meeting,
I believe it.
and it was serious too, because just like they said, there's no atheist
Yeah.
in the foxhole.
Yeah. No, I bet. Well, and, I said this when it comes to all the social unrest that we've had, and I feel like this goes the same thing being a soldier, is I said on one of the podcasts, I said, there's a couple things I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be black. I don't know what it's like to be a police officer either.
Right.
I do not know what either one of those things are like. I don't know what it's like to be a soldier in that kind of situation, to wake up every morning and go, I may never see my family again.
Yep.
My life may never move forward from right here. The people that I've grown to love, I may never see them again. And so that's got to be like emotionally stressful, man, just to be under that all the time.
It really is. Not only just the missions, but we were getting hit on our base by
Yeah.
mortars every other day.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, my room.
Tell the story about that. Yeah.
We had just left our base to go on a mission, and we were going down the road, and we heard an explosion. We looked back at our base, and our room had been hit by a mortar, a big mortar, and it blew through the cinder block walls and just tore up everything inside our room where we sleep. I still have shirts that have shrapnel holes in them where that went into my little dresser I had, and just mangled everything.
So
It
if
was
you
10
guys would
minutes.
have been, yeah, and see, it's things like that I'm like, the difference between you being here right now and not being here was 10 minutes.
That's my mom praying. That's
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah, well, for sure, and PJ and your
Yeah.
dad and your family, there's no doubt.
I'm pretty sure my mom never got off her knees for a whole year. So.
I imagine. How long were you there in Iraq?
For a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Longest year of your life?
Absolutely. Well, at times, the military's a lot of waiting and guard duty,
Yeah.
but when it's fast, it's real fast.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Any other stories that you have like that are maybe just, crazy? I'm sure you could just sit here for probably hours and tell stories.
I mean,
But-
there's so many times, we were pulling security. Once again, I was in the turret on the 50 cal, and AK-47 rounds started pinging off of my turret. And it's just like you see in a movie, the noise,
Yeah,
the ricochet
yeah,
and all
yeah.
that stuff. And so I had to swivel my turret and start returning fire. But I mean, we got out and looked at the turret after it was all over, and the rounds were hitting that far below the top.
That's crazy.
2 inches, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah. Or you could have, put your head up at the wrong time or anything.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a lot of issues with snipers and stuff at that time? Because I know there was a time in that war where, there were some certain snipers that were taking out people and stuff like that.
I don't know if we had any of the famous ones, but I had a buddy I went to basic training with. He was in a guard shack at one of I think it was a traffic control point. He was a different platoon than I was, but he got taken out by a sniper.
Man.
Just sitting in there, pulling guard duty.
Yeah, just like just regular old duty and not even expecting.
Yep.
See, that's the crazy thing to me too, and the other thing is, like you talk about the friends and stuff that you lose when you're over there, and it's not like losing a friend that you went to high school with or something, right?
Yeah.
The bond that you have with those people because you're guarding each other I mean, it's a brotherhood. It really is.
Oh, yeah.
That's not just a saying,
Yeah.
you know? And so when you lose those people, that's got to be tough too, man.
Yeah, and some of these guys don't recover from it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still connected to a lot of them, and they're a little jaded and cynical. And,
Sure.
you know, it really affects you.
Yeah.
We were lucky. My platoon, as much contact as we took, we were the only ones that didn't take any major casualties. My platoon.
Yeah.
So that's
Man,
my mom praying again.
that's what I'm saying. Again, there's no denying that was just God
Yep.
having His hand on you.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you look around and have, destruction to every other platoon and things going on around you, and we still have people connected to our church and stuff that are in the military and doing those things. And I know, obviously, that's calmed down quite a bit. I mean, there's not as much stuff going on. There are in pockets,
Right.
But at that time, because that was what year was that, Donnie?
That I was deployed?
Yeah.
5 to 6.
Okay, yeah, 2005. So it was still pretty hot during that time,
Yeah.
and a lot of stuff going on, right then. So let me ask you this: so when you came back, and where were you stationed when you came back from Baghdad,
I was
right by
back
Baghdad?
in Fort Campbell. I was
Okay.
in Fort Campbell my entire 4 years that I was in. So.
Okay, so in for 4 years, back at Fort Campbell. How do you adjust back to? I mean, going from basically living in a desert, right?
Yeah.
Just being in sand all the time, which how you still enjoy fishing from the beach and stuff after being in that much sand,
Right.
I'll never know. But, after living in that environment, having that high stress environment all the time,
Yeah.
how do you come back and adjust to just regular life where you're not worrying about dying every day?
I don't know. We were jumpy at first, of course. Your phone would vibrate in your pocket, or plane would fly overhead, or tire have a blowout beside you
Yeah.
on the road and stuff like that would just make you jump. But over a period of time, I just kind of gradually got out of it. The pain in my back and knees stayed with me more than anything else.
Yeah.
But some of these guys are not recovering.
Yeah.
You see it with the whole 22 a day
Yeah.
kind of thing, and it's tough on them. We just saturated. I had a certain group of friends. We just kind of imprinted on each other.
Yeah.
And we were like glue, man. We just stayed together.
Well, I've seen that, you still get with those guys sometimes,
Yep.
still talk to those guys and stuff like that. And to me, there's a lot of strength in that because you
Yep.
kind of, still feel that accountability to each other.
Yep.
And it's a good thing because, like you said, I've seen the 22 push-ups for 22 days and,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. And, man, my heart goes out to those guys because it's a real thing to go through something like that and not be able to come back and adjust, you know?
It really is, man. It's tough on them.
Yeah.
I was lucky. In fact, I have my family, the church family, stuff like that. And I like to talk about it because, if someone's thinking about joining the military, they need to go in eyes wide open.
Yes.
And, a lot of people are just like, well, we need to recruit people. Well, they also need to know what's in store for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the good stuff and the bad,
Right. Well, and the thing is, too, I think a lot of guys are like, well, I'm going to go to the military and then I'm going to get rich because I don't have any chance to spend any of this money.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have all this money, and when I get out, I'm going to do all this. And it's just not that way.
No, that money goes real fast.
Yeah, it goes real fast.
Plus, most of them are 17, 18, 18 and 19 years old.
Yeah. So making $35,000 a year sounds like a lot of money, and
Yeah, and you're not wise with your money.
no, of course not.
At least
Well,
I wasn't.
Well, and I think most guys are in that
Yeah.
position where they're not really ready for all of that. And the thing that I think is good is the lessons that you can learn. The funniest thing was my uncle, my dad's brother, who is now in prison, been in prison almost my whole life. He joined the military because he was tired of people telling him what to do.
Yeah, that was
Which has to be, to date, the funniest reason that
Yeah.
I've ever heard anybody join in the military. It's like, oh, well, guess what? Now you're going to have people telling you everything that you can do, when you can use a restroom, when you can't, what you can eat, how long you can eat. shoving your face down in your salad, all that fun stuff.
And when you get to a base, you're finally stationed at your whatever base you go to, they come in your room and
say kind things to you.
Yes, destroy your room. Stuff like that.
Yeah, you got to have your bed made up just right and all that kind of stuff.
24 hours a day. You want to go buy a car, you take one of your NCOs with you.
Yeah.
I mean, and he tells you whether or not you can buy this car.
That's crazy.
It's 24-hour supervision. So.
Yeah, but again, I think at the same time, what it teaches you is, first of all, accountability.
Right.
And then teaches you, hey, maybe I don't have all the best ideas for my life, which sometimes you got to learn that the hard way. Like, I learned that just because I made mistakes. Yeah. And it was like, you know what, maybe I don't have this figured out, You
definitely become more self-aware.
Yeah. Yeah. So what made you decide, like, because you could still be in the military, right, if you wanted to.
Right.
What made you decide after 4 years to just go, okay, well, I'm going to close this chapter and move on?
I got tired of people telling me what to do.
So you got married.
Yeah. There you go. That's exactly what happened. Really, it was all about fishing for me. I just wanted to get back home and go fishing. That's all I could think about when I was in there.
I bet.
I'm meant to live near the coast.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Well, that is in your blood, no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I know your family, going way back to the Cajun side that I can't understand when they talk.
Yeah.
To your Uncle Lloyd and all these other guys and people in your family, because I've actually gone to family reunions with you guys, if you'll remember, a couple of times, I think, and which was very interesting.
Yep.
Extremely interesting. I've been to your grandpa and grandma's house many, many times in Bridge City, fished Cow Bio many times. I had Shannon Chance. I don't know if you know him or not.
Right.
Garrett's brother. And, he's from Bridge City.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So, he grew up in Bridge City. He lived in Bridge City till he moved here like a year and a half ago. So he's very familiar. And he was talking about fishing and stuff when he was on the podcast, and I was like, I fished Cow Bio many times. And he looked at me like, what?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, man. I've caught a lot of grinnell and bass and carp and catfish and just a little bit of everything.
Oh, yeah. You can start in the bio catching freshwater and then work your way out to the lake, and you're in the saltwater.
Yeah, like Lake Sabine.
Yeah.
So for you, it was just like, I got to get home so I can fish.
I mean, pretty much.
Yeah.
I was tired. I was meant for 4 and done. It was a service kind of deal for me, not a life. Yeah. Not a career.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, you felt a calling to do it. You went and did it and felt like you fulfilled, what you needed to fulfill, and time to move on with your life. And I mean, now you've got, great family, beautiful girls, and raising bearded dragons, and which I just recently got one. I was feeding him this morning.
I've got about 20 on the way.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's going to be exciting.
Yeah. So anybody listening needs a bearded dragon?
Well, that sounds like you're fixing to have to call Petco and sell them some bearded dragons.
Absolutely.
So with what you're doing now in your life, just with family and stuff like that, what are some of the principles and stuff that you've taken to being a father, being a dad, maybe stuff you're passing on to your daughters that you've just learned through some of this stuff?
My biggest deal, when I went in, I was very impatient, as you can probably attest to. And that taught me how to be super patient.
Right.
I mean, it was a 180-degree turn for me. I mean, just totally changed my life being in there, being able to control your anger, anything you're feeling, and just be patient. And having a wife and kids, you can pass that on to them. So when life hits them hard, just be patient.
Yeah.
Take your time, think about it before you react, and do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things you can teach your kids is patience. Don't ask God for patience, because He'll teach you patience.
Yeah.
But these kids need to know it, man. They're so reactionary nowadays.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, and it's the environment that we're raising them in, right? Everything is instantaneous. Your food is instant. This is instant. We got fast food. You got, you send people money and you can text me $50 and I get it right. I mean, all this stuff. And my boys will tell you this. You ask them tonight, you'll say, what is the most important thing if you want to have anything good in life? and they'll say hard work and patience.
Absolutely.
It's the two things that from them being little, I had them recite that back to me. And randomly, I'll ask them, "Hey guys, if you want to have anything good in life, what you got to do? Hard work and patient." You know, they're like sick of it, but it's true because, you know, one of the things that taught me patience in my life, honestly, was not only having kids. Having kids will teach you patience for sure, but hunting has taught me patience.
Right.
When I went bear hunting with my bow, I killed a black bear with my bow a couple of summers ago. I was sitting for 7 hours with no phone service. And when I say in the middle of nowhere, I'm talking there is nothing around me for miles and miles and miles and miles. The last day I hunted, the outfitter where we were hunting, he was like, "Hey, do you remember that spot I took you to?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so." He's like, "You think you can just get there on your own if you take my truck?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can get there." You know, so I'd only been once.
Yeah.
And so, but, you know, from being in the woods and stuff, I pay attention to things and like, now, the funny thing is I can do that, but like getting around a city without my map, I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay. But when I go to the woods and stuff like that, I can remember like, oh, I took a left at this tree and I went around here. So I drive out probably 15, 20 minutes into the forest. I mean, in the middle of nowhere.
The wilderness.
Down these logging roads, right?
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere. I get out, I go and bait the hole, you know, where I'm about to hunt with a bunch of like cake batter and all this. This is what bears eat, right? You know, animal guts and all this stuff. Big bucket of like chicken guts and stuff. And go back, put everything back in the truck, walk back out there with my bow. No gun. I have nothing, you know. So I'm asking, I'm like, okay, so when I go out here, like, what if a situation comes up with the bear? You know, I'm just trying to, you know, any tips, anything like that? He's like, well, just don't do anything dumb. And I'm like, okay, don't. He's like, you know, just be smart. And I'm like, okay, yeah, all right. So I'm gonna outsmart the bear. Okay, thanks for letting me know that. So, and I tell people this too. I'm like, if my dad would have known that I'm just going out here in the middle of nowhere, he would have probably freaked out. So, Dad, don't listen to this part of the podcast. But yeah. I go all the way out there and then literally, man, sit for 7 hours until 10 o'clock at night because it doesn't get dark until 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there in Canada. So I'm sitting there from like 3 o'clock until 10 at night with nothing, just me and my thoughts. And so like what hunting has taught me, and this is probably the same thing with you when you guys are sitting out somewhere and you're having to guard something or just in the middle of the desert, you know, there's just nothing out there. I've learned how to think about things in my life and like, you know, really, you know, have introspective thinking and just think about, man, what am I going to do when I get back and how's things going in my life? And I think that's the things that we don't have time to do now in the life that we live, this rat race, that we actually need to have. Like, to me, we need those times where everything's shut off. Like, the only thing I hear is birds. I hear something moving. I look over. It's a fox. You know, like I'm in the middle. It's just me, God, and nature. There's nothing else. But that has taught me, like, to take time. Of course, I always end up praying when I'm out there. It's like every time I'm out there, I just end up talking to God. And it's usually about things that I don't think about talking to Him about here. Right. You know? And I'm sure you can probably relate to that.
Yeah, with all the noise gone, you know, you can really think about what's important.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of sitting there praying with my eyes wide open in the guard stand. Yeah. So
I'm sure, and just going, you know, God, what's my life doing? You know, like,
why did I join the
army? You joined the army because you're wanting to please.
Absolutely.
You know, you're wanting to please. What is it, Sam?
Right.
But yeah, you know, I think those times are the times that you can really just shut everything off and have time alone with yourself and have time alone with God. And honestly, I feel like we don't get enough time to do that.
No, we don't.
You know?
If you sit and think about how few people get that opportunity, like you were talking about, just to be out in the woods.
Yeah.
Without all this ambient noise around us.
Yeah.
I mean, the city noises, your phone, you know, work, all that stuff. I mean, it's amazing how many people don't get to experience that stuff.
It's true. Well, and you get the same thing fishing if
Right.
you're not having all your kids with you
That's
fishing.
my happy spot. Yep.
But that's the connection that I've always enjoyed with nature. It's not just about going out and killing something, which I always eat whatever I kill. I've always felt that way about that kind of stuff. But, or going out and catching fish or whatever you're doing, to me it's more of I'm connecting with what we were really meant to do in the first place.
Right.
Right? Like provide for ourselves when it comes to food and stuff.
Yep.
And not just go buy a steak that someone made look real nice in a package somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, to me, I feel better about, and I was telling people, this is a little bit off the subject, but I was telling people one of the things that I love about killing animals that I eat is, like, I give away probably 50%
Right.
of the meat that I have. And it makes me feel good. Like, I'm like, hey, man, try this sausage out. Or,
Right.
I have people try bear meat that have never eaten bear meat before, and they're like, bear meat? I'm like, try this jerky and then get back to me.
I'm still waiting on that bear meat.
I'll bring some tonight.
Okay.
I'll bring some tonight. So, but man, it's delicious.
Yep.
And people just, we're so used to eating these certain things, like getting in this certain, to me, it's a connection back to what we were meant to be. And again, just shutting out all the noise, and
Right.
being able to think about what we're really here for.
And you appreciate stuff that you worked for.
Yeah.
You
For
sat
sure.
out there for 10 hours, 7 hours, whatever, and hunted that meat and cleaned and processed it yourself. It tastes better.
It absolutely tastes better.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's an accomplishment feeling to it rather than, I just pulled through the drive-thru, somebody gave me a scowl, and I got a taco that's probably going to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing too, that meat, that you can literally have no better meat for you when it comes to something that's been eating berries and
Yep.
cake batter and
No steroids and
none of
preservatives.
No preservatives.
Yeah.
Well, man, look, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I know you got a lot more stories because we've talked about these things one-on-one and a lot of things that you could share. But I want to thank you, man, for taking the time to come on the podcast and share some of this stuff. I think it's going to be a benefit. And let me say this. If you are in the military, you've been in the military before, you feel like you're going through PTSD or you're going through, depression or anything like that, reach out to somebody. Reach out to us. Reach out to Donny. He's
Absolutely.
on Facebook. Donny Dial at Facebook. But reach out to someone, a family member, because it's real. And going through those things and having to get back into the real world, so to speak, when you're so used to those high stress situations, we weren't meant for that in some ways.
Right.
To go from way up here to, oh wow, now I'm back to, this totally different life.
Yep.
So reach out to somebody if you're in that. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Remember, we drop a podcast every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Thanks again to Donny Dial. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on Instagram at @TheRWPodcast_, Facebook at TheRW Podcast. Check us out on YouTube under the Royalwood Church channel. You can check us out on Roku TV, iTunes. We're everywhere. So if this was beneficial to you, share it with somebody. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below. And thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of DRW. We appreciate you guys tuning in every week, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. If you want to see video content for this podcast, make sure that you go to Royalwood Church on YouTube. That's right below. Make sure that you click on the bell so you can be notified for new content. Also, you want to follow us on Instagram at DRW Podcast _, Facebook at DRW Podcast, and then brand new, we've got our Roku channel where you can check out the podcast, and also Apple TV. Make sure that you tune in every week, like and share this with someone that you think it would be a blessing to, and we'll see you soon.